Hi, my name is Mr. Havel. I'm your student's AP Language and Composition teacher. This video is designed to introduce you to some of the expectations of the course, and it's also an online tool that I hope the students become accustomed to because a lot of colleges are moving to online resources and online classes, and I kind of use a lot of tools like this to prepare them for that. Throughout the video, if you want to read what's on the screen, I encourage you to use the pause button because sometimes I'll move through the screens pretty quickly. Also, you should have received a syllabus to sign. All of the content on the slides comes directly from that syllabus. A little bit about me. I've been teaching for 15 years. I've been teaching AP for 7. The students may see my son with me at games. I am a single dad. It's just kind of a fact of life for me. I want to put it out there. Other than that, I think I'm pretty boring and I don't know. Other than that, I think there's a clear line respecting my privacy. I am a grad student. When it comes to that, just realize that the grad school work that I am doing complements what I do in the classroom, so it won't be taking me away from. I'm designing online resources for high school teachers, and I'm going to be using what I create for this class for my grad school work. I attended Loyola University New Orleans. My strengths as a teacher, I think I bring a lot of enthusiasm to the class. I am an AP reader. In the summertime, I go off and I work for a company called ETS, Educational Testing Services, and I've been reading essays for this AP class. At the end of the year, there is an AP examination, and it determines how they did in the class, and colleges look to that score and sometimes some colleges give students credit. This class is the equivalent of your introductory college writing class. Comp 101 may be a term you're familiar with. I think that I'm a strict but fair teacher. I'll talk more about that later. And just realize that on my strengths, I like to pride myself on creating an environment that rewards kids for hard work and gives them an opportunity to be in an environment where they're working hard, where their work is meaningful. My weaknesses, a lot of the class involves essays, and that can be very time consuming at times. And so sometimes there's a couple of days when it takes essays to be returned. I'm a very busy person. Sometimes I'm going. With that in mind, there will be some set days where I will be on campus for tutoring. Also, I'm very by the book, and I'm very strictly business type of guy. Sometimes I'm a little cold and impersonal. It's not my intention, but it helps me be fair, and it helps me push the students when I'm not too emotionally connected. I always tell the kids, I'm not your enemy, I'm not your friend, I'm your teacher, and I just want to make sure that when I'm frustrating your students, I need to not take it personally, because I think when we are frustrated is when we're learning the most. So please excuse me if I come off a little cold. I'm always willing to discuss things, so it's never my intention to offend anybody. My rules, there they are. Pause this, read them. This is how my class works. It's based on 2 ideas. I reward kids for hard work, and I don't let students that cheat and maybe kind of are a little bit more laid back. They need to be held accountable for that, because one day life will hold them accountable for that. The class. This class is equivalent to Composition 101. And the only thing I have to say about this slide is that writing is a skill, which means it's kind of like playing an instrument. We will be reading some novels, but with writing being a skill, and this being a skill-based class, I reward students for constant hard-working practice. It's kind of frustrating for some kids because they come in and say things like, well, I'm not a good writer, how am I going to do well in this class? Well, students aren't punished for being bad writers. They're coached up appropriately. But if they engage with all of the practice I give them, 2 things will happen. Number 1, their grade won't suffer. They're going to get a good grade. And number 2, they're going to grow as a writer. So if you have any other questions about this class, feel free to email me. Grades. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. 2 things. No big surprises at the end of a 9-week period. There's not going to be any dramatic point changes. It should be pretty predictable 2 weeks before the grades are due what your student is going to get, except for one exception. The accelerated reader grade will go in at the end of the 9-week period, and you can read that and find out the information about that. There's one grade that involves the input of another teacher. That's the middle bullet point. That's the enrichment grade. And if that is in any way hurting your student's grade, just you have my word that I'll check in with those teachers. Homework, I give it. I also have a text messaging service that I use called Remind. That middle bullet point will tell you how to join it. I don't communicate back with text messages. I think that's kind of inappropriate. Email is the best way to communicate with me. But this service, I announce the homework, and you'll get the kids and you, if you'd like, will get a text message, and you'll see what the homework is. Late work policy. Homework is due at the start of every class. Again, I like to reward students that work hard and get the work done outside of class. They need to manage their time appropriately. If a student is finishing their assignment at the beginning of class, it's late, and they will receive 1 day of docked credit. If a student turns in something late 1 day, though, they still have the opportunity to get a 90% A. It's 10% off a day. Absent work. I understand that when you're absent in high school, it's kind of tough because you'll come in and you'll have a new set of homework for all of your classes again. So I give 2 days to make up any absent work. However, if you're absent on the day of a test, the student will be expected to take that test or write that essay immediately when they come back. Saturday study sessions. Throughout the year, there's going to be 3 study sessions. The students will be expected to attend 2 out of 3. I understand that sometimes it's just not possible to make one of these sessions, so they can make up and do alternative assignments. Some students prefer to do the alternative assignments. I strongly encourage going to these sessions. There'll be someone with some expertise about the AP Language and Composition course and the exam, and it will be a test prep. It's very, very, very good for the students to hear the information and content of this class being presented by another expert. Sometimes my voice will be a little, they'll get used to it so much where some of the concepts they'll glaze over, and a new presenter will help them retain and understand the information better. If you have questions about this, go ahead and give me a call, but the dates are listed there. And all of these English sessions are held at Joe T. Robinson High School. There's a first semester final exam, and it's a mock examination. That means it's an entire AP Language and Composition exam, and that's going to give the students an idea of where they stand if they were to take the class at that point. For the second semester, if a student has a B or higher, they do not have to take the second semester final exam. If a student wants to take the exam to boost their average up, even though they have a B or higher, they have that option available. The AP test, if you're failing the course, you have to pay for your AP test. And if you do not take the AP test, you do not receive a weighted credit. And a weighted credit, basically, for your GPA calculation, if you receive a C will show up on the report card, but a C in an AP class is weighted as 3 points for the GPA. If you have questions, feel free to ask me about that, but long story short is that their hard work is rewarded in an AP class, and their grades are worth more when calculating their GPA. However, if they do not take the AP examination, that calculation will not be implemented. These are the 2 things that I usually write students up for the most. I want to reiterate, I said at the beginning I'm strict but fair. With cell phones, at the beginning of class, I'll announce repeatedly and probably annoyingly for about 10 seconds, put your phones up, put your phones up. I know how connected you are to your phone, and you can't live without it. I don't want to upset you if I take it. Put your phone up. And then if I see their phone in class, I'll ask them for it because phones are a distraction. There's a clock in the room. There is a phone number listed there for emergencies. And if you have any questions about, that's just kind of the PCSSD policy. I do not take phones if they're sticking out of pockets. That's ridiculous. If it's obvious that a student is tapping on the screen or is looking in their lap, I'll just say, hey, I need your phone. So the tardy policy, if kids are tardy, they'll be disciplined. For juniors, they just need to realize that someone is paying attention, and that's just a habit for juniors. When they get a little bit more independence, some of them start driving. Tardies can sneak up and really hurt their grade quite a bit. You learn more when you're fed, when a student is eating. I don't allow food in class, but at the end of the day, if a student eats something at the beginning of class, I actually encourage that, because you don't retain information when you're hungry. Also, there's a sleep epidemic with teenagers, like due to devices like vibrating cell phones, the lights from cell phones. It's interrupting students' REM sleep, and that's when the information they learn goes to long-term memory. Long story short, just make sure the kids are getting sleep. And in my house, my son and I, we charge our phones outside of our bedrooms. We have alarm clocks in our room just to make sure that light from the phone and the vibrations from the phone aren't waking us up. If it's next to me and I hear the vibration, I'm human, I will look at it. So, Chromebooks and plagiarism. The Chromebook needs to be a tool that's used appropriately. And if kids are playing games, I'm going to make sure that they're held accountable in an appropriate way. I use a lot of online resources. And if they're not using that tool efficiently, I need to rein that in. Plagiarism, this is pretty serious, because in college, please excuse that Fox News update. That's kind of interesting. That'll come into play later on. Go away, Fox News. Oh, no. All right. Pardon that interruption. Chromebooks and plagiarism. Plagiarism, excuse me. It's a serious offense, and they can lose their scholarships and get kicked out of college for it. And so students need to be aware of that. So I just I discipline it pretty accurately. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Just please know that at the beginning of the year, I do a lesson that I can actually share with you, just so that plagiarism is clear. The one thing that I need to make sure the students are aware of is their writing improves drastically when they take it away from class. I'm going to have to talk to the student about that and look at that, because sometimes I found that students will have someone else write an assignment for them, and if they are not doing their own writing, they are not growing as a writer, and pretty much the time that they're spending in the class is useless to build the skill. I think learning is more than a grade. If they're not using the exercises I give them to grow their writing skills, they're going to hurt themselves later on when they're not equipped with those skills. Controversial topics. I don't think it's my place to talk about religion and things of a sexual nature. That's your family's business. Sometimes because of the media, race and issues of gay rights have been coming up. Your students' beliefs are going to be respected. We will be discussing those topics delicately. I tend to shy away from them because I'm trying to teach them the tools of communication. And when too much emotion gets involved, they're not acquiring that skill appropriately. There are times when we talk about how emotion interferes with good, clear communication. And in order to not kind of bias that, we stay away from it. Media bias, it's kind of ironic that Fox News, I don't know if you saw the news flash up here on my computer screen. I get lots of news updates from lots of different sources. However, in class, the cable news from television. It's used as an example of bias, but we don't really look at it a lot. I look at mainly print journalism, and a lot of the print journalism is balanced out just to make sure that biases are balanced out. There is bias in the media, And the New York Times is balanced out with the Wall Street Journal. The New Yorker is balanced out with the Economist and the Atlantic Monthly and Harper's. I tell them that multiple sources are key. In order to avoid media bias, you look at the facts being presented by multiple media sources, and to stay away from inflammatory and sensational internet sources. There will be a time when we look at the effect of conspiracy theory on the trust of the people in the United States and how it represents people in the United States. But other than that, I kind of stay away from that too. It's just a lot of that stuff is it's not based in fact, and that's one of the things we stick to. When we talk about Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, issues of race do come up, and I always connect them with issues of class and race because those two things have been closely connected in the United States history. A lot of the content they'll be looking at in AP US history or just American history is going to relate to that. I don't shy away from those controversial topics. However, it's approached with facts, and those lessons are shared because what's probably most important about those lessons is that your family should also be a part of the discussion. Here are the materials. Here's my contact information. I hope this video has been informative. If you have any questions, email me. Thanks.